mourners across the nation gathering at the Supreme Court to pay their respects to Ruth Bader Ginsburg as she lies in repose.
Plus, election 2020. Who is leading who in the Arizona polls? The answer may surprise you.
And the fear some undocumented families face over responding to the census and how that could impact Arizona.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Milan Andrade.
And I'm Sean Rice. Thank you for joining us.
We start with breaking news tonight. Police and protesters are clashing in Louisville, Kentucky after the grand jury decision in the Breonna Taylor case. A grand jury decided to not indict police officers on criminal charges directly related to Breonna Taylor's death. After the decision, protesters in Injustice Square chanted "No justice, no peace," and began marching through the streets. Police say they have made some arrests. Louisville police killed Taylor during a drug raid gone wrong. Taylor was shot multiple times by officers who bursted into her home on March 13th. Prosecutors said the two officers who fired their weapons were justified in using force to protect themselves. The only charges brought by the grand jury were 3 counts of wanton endangerment against fired officer Brett Hankison for shooting into neighborhood homes.
The fight to replace late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is heating up in Washington. But today, at least, politics took a back seat to mourning as admirers lined up to pay their respects to the liberal icon. Cronkite News reporter Maithili Gubi brings us the story from the Supreme Court.
Hundreds of people gathered first thing in the morning in front of the Supreme Court to pay their respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. People brought flowers, signs, and memories.
She was so invested and so present with us in that moment. And the delight in her face was just incredible.
Kristen Brandis was describing the look when Ginsburg officiated at her wedding to Bridget McGraw in January 2017.
She said, "Oh, this is such great news. I would be so happy to do this for you. It's a crazy time. If you can be to the court by 4 o'clock on the 19th.
Not everyone had a personal encounter, but many of the hundreds in line had a story about how Ginsburg affected them personally. Queen Creek resident Samuel Jordan said she inspired his change of career.
RBG is obviously one of the most iconic judges and justices in history. And I went back and I'm going to go study immigration law in the state of Arizona.
Jordan came to D.C. specifically to pay his respects. He joined others lined up, masked and socially distanced for the chance to walk past the steps where Ginsburg's casket was displayed. The day began with a private ceremony inside the court's Great Hall, attended by family and other justices. After that, her casket was brought to the top of the court steps. The mood outside the court was somber and respectful, and people seemed willing to wait for as long as it took. Kim Bates remembers Ginsburg's lifelong work for women's rights.
I was alive when Roe v. Wade was passed, and I was a teenager. And I think people don't understand that that was a key ruling in giving women the ability to control their lives.
But today, political differences were put aside.
I didn't agree with her on a lot of her opinions because I'm a conservative and she was a liberal, but I respected her and she fought a lot of good battles and stood up well for women.
But politics is never far away in Washington.
I think we're in a very precarious moment, and I hope that people are watching, because with her passing, the court, one of the institutions that we count on for fairness, is at risk.
Jordan thinks the Senate should wait to confirm the next justice.
It's the respectful thing to do when somebody of this nature dies. I think you give the time for the country to heal first and foremost, but also you have to, I think, take the proper and not make it a rushed decision.
Lesko disagreed, saying she has no doubt Democrats would make the appointment if they were in power. Besides, she said, Trump said he will nominate a woman.
It's fantastic. We need a conservative woman in the Supreme Court. It's a fantastic pick. I'm glad President Trump said it. It's great.
Bridget and Kristen did not share that enthusiasm.
It's a grave loss, and the time in which it's happening couldn't be more challenging.
Viewings will continue till 10 p.m. tonight and tomorrow as well, before Justice Ginsburg is brought to lie in state on Friday. At the Supreme Court, Maithili Gubi, Cronkite News.
Ginsburg will become the first woman to lie in state in the Capitol, and only the second woman ever honored there, after civil rights pioneer Rosa Parks. Ginsburg is scheduled to be buried next week in Arlington National Cemetery.
President Trump says he's still planning on announcing his Supreme Court justice nomination later this week. Topping his list are 5 women, including federal appellate judges Amy Coney Barrett and Barbara Lagoa. The nomination is set to come Friday or Saturday. This would cement a right-leaning majority on the U.S.'s highest court, where justices serve for life or until they choose to retire. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has called for Trump's Supreme Court nominee to be withdrawn should he win the election in November.
Speaking of Biden, the wife of late Arizona Republican Senator John McCain has endorsed him. In a series of tweets, Cindy McCain announced her endorsement, saying, "My husband John lived by a code, country first. We are Republicans, yes, but Americans foremost. There's only one candidate in this race who stands up for our values as a nation, and that is Joe Biden." The endorsement comes after President Trump's multiple remarks against her husband.
Right now, President Trump and Joe Biden are virtually tied in Arizona and Florida. According to a Washington Post and ABC News poll, 49% of likely voters in our state back Trump, while 48% favor Biden. And in Florida, Trump leads Biden by 4 percentage points, with Trump at 51 and Biden at 47. However, the leads Biden-Trump has in both states fall within the survey's margin of error. Trump won both Arizona and Florida in the 2016 election.
Today, Dr. Anthony Fauci among top officials testifying before the State Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. As the government's leading infectious disease expert, Fauci has been a realist about the dangers of the coronavirus, but also optimistic about the prospects for a vaccine. He said by the end of this year, government scientists should know whether they have a safe and effective vaccine for COVID-19. He also confirmed several kinds of vaccines are in the final stages for testing in the U.S. Here in Arizona, the mask mandate is up for debate. On Monday, we told you about a meeting held by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to discuss potentially lifting the mask requirement. Well, one Arizona city took things into their own hands. The mayor of Scottsdale, Jim Lane, announced he's removing his city's mask mandate. Lane cited the, quote, significant decline of infection and hospitalization rates in the county over the past several weeks as the main reason for rescinding the requirement. However, the Maricopa County mandate is still in place, so you will still have to wear a mask when out in most public places in Scottsdale. The next scheduled public meeting for Maricopa is October 7th. As of now, discussing the mask requirement is not on the agenda.
The deadline for the 2020 census is quickly approaching. This massive nationwide population survey dictates funding, legislative seats, and community service for the next 10 years. By September 30th, all Americans should submit their information. Cronkite News reporter Kylie Cochran takes us inside one Arizona community that could be undercounted and what the impact may be.
I'm optimistic and I have a lot of faith that things will change in our communities, in my children's school districts.
School is just one of the many programs impacted by the 2020 census count.
I have a 25-year-old son, a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
So for Erlinda Calderon, an activist in the Arizona Hispanic community, filling out the census has become a family affair.
I actually have pictures of us filling them out. My youngest daughter was upset because she didn't want to send the paper. She wanted to keep the paper with her at home.
Calderon also happens to be one of 275,000 undocumented Arizonans, according to Pew Research. But not every mixed-status family feels the same way she does about the census. A recent survey by Unidos US, the nation's largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization, found 15% of Latinos did not want to share household information with the federal government. Clarissa Martinez de Castro, who works at Unidos US as the Deputy Vice President of Policy, sees a larger impact.
Anybody who doesn't get counted means the whole community gets less resources.
That's the argument made by numerous governments, including the city of Phoenix, against President Donald Trump in this memo to exclude undocumented migrants from the census. With over 275,000 undocumented individuals in Arizona, that could affect the state's representation in Congress. But a federal court recently struck down that memo, calling it unlawful.
Let the core battles continue, but each of us can bring voice to our communities, to our states, and the resources that come with that by completing the census.
Calderon continues to knock on doors as a census volunteer, reassuring families.
I look over at them and I think to myself, you have 4 to 5 kids with you. So I comment, if immigration wanted to come for you, they would have already done it. Your wife went to a hospital to birth your children.
She hopes the undocumented community keeps in mind what the census can do for them.
I imagine that sometimes you guys need help. Stamps, help from access, all that is federal money.
Kylie Cochran, Cronkite News.
For every Arizonan, if you have not responded to your census or received your postcard in the mail, it's not too late. Just visit my2020census.gov, provide your address to get your census ID, and then respond.
Yesterday, Governor Doug Ducey signed a proclamation declaring October 12th as Indigenous Peoples Day in the state. The proclamation, which was proposed by Arizona State Senator Jay Mesita Peshlikai, says Arizona recognizes Indigenous people were the first inhabitants of the America. It also acknowledges the historic injustices they suffered. Peshlikai, who is also a member of the Navajo Nation, launched an initiative to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. She says this has been a close effort to the hearts of the Indigenous people. To celebrate the proclamation, there will be an event at the Heard Museum on September 29th at 9:30 a.m.
Coming up on Cronkite News, battling the blazes. As wildfires continue to burn across the West Coast, we took a look at the impact they may have on Arizona. Don't go away.
Ready to watch the best of PBS anytime, anywhere, on nearly any device? It's easy with the free PBS Video app. Simply download the PBS Video app on your mobile or streaming device. Now you can watch the latest PBS episodes or catch up on the shows you missed. Discover new favorites from PBS and local content from your PBS station.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
Hey, I'm Rick Steves. You know, I don't go anywhere without my passport. Thanks to PBS Passport, you can watch all my travel specials. This exclusive streaming service is just for our members. Not only can you see all my shows, but you can see thousands of hours of your favorite public television shows. Become a member today.
Here we go, lights up. Whoa.
As artists, we conduct our educations in public. You can never know whether it's going to be a success. One just has to risk it.
It's you and the work and the place. It's a very particular relationship.
Here's our lens. Tell us what you think.
Friday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Every day I wake up, my first thought is, how can I serve this community?
The biggest hurdle was not taking PTSD personally.
So would you welcome, please, the amazing.
Everybody that watches this, they say that I am the greatest that they've ever seen.
Firefighters have tamed more of an enormous wildfire burning in the mountains northeast of Los Angeles. The Bobcat fire is now 38% contained. Cronkite News reporter Jay Coulter spoke with the state climatologist to see if Arizona is at high risk for wildfires as well.
The Arizona state climatologist explained that while we're also having a dry spell, there are some key differences that put Arizona in better shape than California.
The fires raging in the west are some of the worst seen in recent history. Property damage, eerie footage of red-orange skies, and an air quality that is equivalent to smoking multiple packs a day has many in Arizona worried that it could happen here too. We spoke with Dr. Nancy Sullivan, the state climatologist here in Arizona, about her take on the fires out west and if she thinks Arizona could be at risk.
One of the things that's going on in California is because of their extended, lengthy drought that they had back in 2012 to 2014 or 15, they have a lot of dead trees. Bark beetles did a lot of damage, and so a lot of that dead forest material is still in the forest because it hasn't been removed or cleared out of there. And that's not uncommon. That tends to happen. It's quite expensive to go get all of those dead trees and bring them down. So that makes more fuel for when a forest fire starts.
Sullivan says that the reason it is so bad this year is partly because it has been the hottest August on record in California, which only further dried out the vegetation. However, she illustrates a key difference between California and Arizona.
One of the things that's happening in Arizona, hopefully that will keep us from getting to that point of as bad a situation as what's going on in California, is that the forestry management people and Salt River Project and the Indian tribes that live up on the Mogollon Rim and things where we have our biggest forest fire issues are all working to thin the forests so that we have more space between the trees. So when we get a fire, it's not as catastrophic as those.
Sullivan also says that the unusually wet winter we had meant lots of vegetation grew. But since climatologists have dubbed this year a failed monsoon, she expects a much longer fire season than we've had in the past. In the broadcast center, Jay Coulter, Cronkite News.
Finally tonight, Arizona's Snow Bowl has announced plans to reopen for winter with new coronavirus protocols. The ski resort plans to open its season starting November 20th. Masks will be required in indoor spaces. Capacity will be limited in the restaurants. Guests will be encouraged to be outside or consider going to their vehicles to warm up or eat. The mountain will be open on a first-come, first-served basis.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona news stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.